By the way, Holly returns next Shabbat. Not that I'm paying attention. If anybody's paying attention, it's you guys. So I want to tell you something about the Torah portion for today. The Torah portion for this Shabbat, it's called Ekev. Ekev means because. It's not a great word to begin a Torah portion, but there's a lot of pieces in here. But before I kind of share this one little line of Torah with you, I want to tell you that Simone Biles is my new rabbi. We all know who I'm talking about, this incredible, amazing human being who's a gymnast. Well, I am determining, and I've already told her, that she's my rabbi. She's an incredible athlete, to be sure, but she's my new rabbi because she is courageous, and because in so many ways she's a role model. But a role model not just for sport. A role model not because of gymnastics, because I don't really watch gymnastics. My family's watching gymnastics, and I'm responding to the emails from my vacation. It's because she's a role model, I believe, for what really matters. She's a trailblazer, and she's a mensch. If you don't know what a mensch is, if you look it up, according to the world, according to Fred Green, a world is an authentic human being, a real person, nothing plastic or phony about her. As folks are watching the Olympics, she recognized that she was feeling just this tremendous stress and anxiety, perhaps, in her own space. And she knew it, and she owned it, and she talked about it. Simone Biles was the only one competing who endured, at least as far as people know, who endured the sexual assault of a USA Gymnastics so-called doctor. She publicly criticized USA Gymnastics for its years of failure to act on complaints against this doctor. And she returned to compete because, according to her, if there weren't a remaining survivor in the sport, they would have just brushed it to the side. So she took it on. It's no wonder that she felt, in her words, that she had the weight of the world on her shoulders at times. That's what she posted on Instagram. Simone Biles showed us a few lessons. I want to talk about one, but I have to mention the other two. One lesson, quoting another journalist, her name is Monica Torres, she says that Simone Biles refused to be a work martyr, which I just love. A work martyr, I never heard of the term before. Work martyrdom is an affliction in which you cannot stop sacrificing your own best interest for the needs of others at work, at a company, or in her case, on a team. And second, she taught us that mental health is connected to our physical health. As she was feeling whatever it was that she was feeling, it could not only impact her score, but she would not be able to safely conduct herself in competition. And so she pulled out of the competition. Reminds me of Hillel, doesn't it? If I am not for myself, who will be for me? Now we have some other examples of this second lesson that she's been teaching us. Naomi Osaka withdrew from the French Open recently after refusing to participate in mandatory media sessions, citing her own mental health challenges. I don't watch tennis, but I watched her. The organizer fined her $15,000 for not attending this media session, and the Grand Slam board warned her that she might be suspended in the future. She said that she often felt that people have no regard for the athlete's mental health. Osaka chose to refuse to compete. She revealed that she had dealt with bouts of depression, and none of this was good for her, an introvert. I feel for these women and others who are challenged by public's feelings of entitlement to have unfettered access to their everything. Everything. Certainly, even their health for our entertainment. And they're pushing back at the prevailing myth that to be the best, you have to compromise everything. Everything that is important to you. So now, to the Torah. What's the Torah that I'm thinking of for this? I couldn't run away from their stories and their modeling, because in this week's Torah portion in Ekev, we read that if we love God and walk God's ways, there are going to be many, many blessings. I happen to believe that's true. But there's a challenging text if we were to take it literally, which I believe we should not. I'm going to say that again, in case you didn't hear me. We're not always meant to take the text literally. Now, I know I have rabbi friends and colleagues and pastors too who are going to disagree with that statement, but we can argue about it someplace else. I still believe that there's a truth here. In verses 14 and 15, right at the beginning of the Torah portion, it says that you'll be more blessed than all the peoples, and God will turn away every illness. I wish, because God loves me, and I believe God loves even me. So certainly God's going to love you. And if that's true, God's going to turn away every illness. Bring it. I'm ready. But I think there's poetry here, not a literal message. Dr. Richard Elliott Friedman, perhaps one of the greatest Bible scholars in the world, still at the University of Georgia, which I have to ask him about, he looks at the word Baruch, blessed, and in the Torah's context, it generally refers to being well off. That's the context. He says here it is explicitly connected to good health. So when it says that Israel be more blessed than other peoples, if they keep their covenant, it does not mean, he says, that Israel will have some special status, but rather it means that God will bless them with well-being. If you keep the covenant, you will have well-being. I am going to take that to mean that if we live good lives, if we live righteously, with integrity, with our whole selves, we will have well-being. And I think of Simone Biles, living with her whole self, her physical self and her mental health. And when something isn't quite in balance, we need to go and find others to help us restore the integrity, which isn't perfection. It is a sense of wholeness. When the Torah has a letter that is missing, scraped, damaged, hurt, we restore the Torah's integrity by bringing a sofer to restore its fullness. But we have such a hard time thinking that confusing wholeness with perfection. And I share it as often as I possibly can. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a life without pain. It means we can have well-being. Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, Serena Williams, Michael Phelps. Amazing, incredible, world-class athletes who all have shared they deal with depression and anxiety. They've been revealing truths about themselves and their mental health and the choices that they've had to make in order to take care of themselves and often be criticized for it. And yet by choosing health and integrity over medals, they get to pursue a greater balance and find more support around them, receive more love, and teach incredible lessons to the people around them and the people like me that will never ever meet them. Don't take it literally. God will turn away from you every illness. There's another piece of Torah that I want to share, and it goes back to the book of Genesis, because I think this shows how we often get trapped. In Genesis, we meet Lot. Lot and his family. They're living in a rough neighborhood in Sodom and Gomorrah. So they're living in Sodom, and these angels appear to Lot and the family, saying that they have to leave immediately because God is about to destroy these two cities. And so Lot takes his family and they run away, but part of this warning is that they cannot look backwards. They can't look back at the destruction. Otherwise, they're going to turn into a pillar of salt. And everybody runs away. But Lot's poor wife looks back, and she's transformed. She's transformed. So the question is why? We're not told why. Either she's curious or faces this horrible punishment because all she does is turn around and look back. Maybe God doesn't want her to see the destruction. Why? We all know that it's happening. We know there's violence, and frankly, they're more up close to violence than we are in the ancient world. What was really going on that there was going to be such a dire consequence of turning back? Curiosity doesn't settle it for me. This is what I think. And you have to remember that I believe that the Torah is teaching us a truth. And I'm a little uncomfortable with what I find in the truth because I don't believe in blaming victims. But I think that there's a message here. If we're going to learn the truth, it has to be more than about curiosity. Maybe she couldn't figure out how to forge ahead and choose a better path, a safer path. Maybe she got used to what was going on in Sodom, and some of it was okay. Maybe more carefully, I think she had a hard time looking forward to build a new future. She kind of got stuck in the past, and she couldn't break away with all of the old myths and tricks and training that we all get, the myths that hold us back. And it kept her there in a place, and she became a part of it. I actually think God is telling us to choose life, go forward like Abraham does, not like Lot's wife, looking backwards and getting stuck. Easier said than done for all of us. But if you need help to unlock that door, I think one response is our faith. But if you need more help than faith, I have a great referral list. that I've been working on. If Simone Biles was physically hurt, she broke her ankle, people would celebrate her. We should be celebrating her decisions now, out front and in public, and celebrating her courage. We need to view her mental health care as seriously as her physical health care. Michael Phelps, that Olympic gold medal swimmer, has been very open the last 5-6 years or so about his own bouts of depression and is making commercials encouraging people to get treatment. And one of the things he says over and over and over again, it's okay to not be okay. We all need to ask for help, friends. We're all entitled to God's blessings. We all have to face the chaos and the voids that are embedded in God's creation. And we have people to look to who are living with the hard stuff. It's not just us. And I don't think we're ever alone. So what can we do? Maybe if we're a little bit more fortunate, well, let's make some tzedakah. Let's support the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Let's look at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Tell a friend about the spiritual support group that's here in our synagogue for people living with mental health challenges and their families around them. Let's take a mental health first aid class. Everyone in our congregation, in our county, should be taking first aid classes and mental health first aid classes. Let's consider how our faith community can be a brave space, can contribute to your well-being, others' well-being, and how we can walk with God along the way. Our health matters, all of it. Mental health, physical health, spiritual health, it all matters. And you're worthy of being content and of being loved and in finding goodness and to be happy and strong. So, thank you, Rabbi Biles. We've learned a good lesson from you. I'm going to join your shul. I'll tell you what that means, and then we can walk in God's ways together. 586.